Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new self-titled I Hate God record. This is the comeback album from New Orleans metal outfit Eyehategod, their first studio full-length LP of brand new material in 14 years. The band left us on a very gruesome note back in the year 2000 with the LP Confederacy of Ruined Lives, which was a pretty typical record for Eyehategod. Heavy, noisy, abrasive, disgusting. And Eyehategod were not the only metal group in the 90s pumping out these heavy, sludgy, aggressive riffs. There was Neurosis, of course there was Down and Crowbar, of which Eyehategod member Jimmy Bower also plays in. There's also the Melvins, but Eyehategod was easily one of the most stomach-churning of these groups. Their music just had a reputation for being more savage, more grating. Heavy, distorted guitars, primal drums that had a nice punch to them, really gross, throaty vocals from longtime frontman Mike Williams, and then there was the occasional bluesy guitar riff working it into the band's very sludgy brand of mayhem as well. And even though the blues most likely was a musical influence on Eyehategod directly, considering that they were from New Orleans, a lot of the blues elements that turn up in the band's music, for the most part, comes off a lot of the time like Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi worship. Speaking strictly in sludge metal terms, Eyehategod was pretty much on the polar opposite of the finesse scale from a band like ISIS. Back when they were releasing a steady stream of LPs, Eyehategod didn't have much to offer the world in terms of evolution and experimentation, but they had the punch-you-in-your-face-itude of 5 bands in their genre. So now Eyehategod is back with this new self-titled record, and after 14 years, and I'm sure it definitely helped that a lot of the members of the band were still active in other groups, but after 14 years, their sound is feeling pretty unchanged. They are working with a noticeably clearer production sound on this LP, but for the most part, the guitar tone, the drums, it feels like all their instrumentation was locked in a room. Their amps stored away untouched in some studio somewhere, and then they just returned to play, and it's just all the same because it wasn't touched, like I said earlier. There are some slight but noticeable changes, though. I think the vocals are a bit nastier. I think the guitar riffs are a little stiffer. And the clarity of the recording on this LP maybe puts the band at a level of sonic cleanliness that they didn't really need. In a way, I think it kind of subtracts from the impact of a band whose style is all impact. Because at this point, I mean, honestly, Eyehategod is not writing some of the most original riffs in sludge, especially in an age when we have people experimenting with the genre so boldly with noise, such as bands like Indian and Stone Titan and Lord Mantis. Of course, Crowbar and Down are still active. There's also groups with flashier playing and heavier recordings than this, like Mastodon and High on Fire. However, I still think there's room in sludge for keeping the genre, keeping new records in the genre close to the roots, and just keeping things disgusting, keeping things straightforward, keeping things visceral, and that's exactly what the band does from the opening track on this thing, Agitation, Propaganda, a song that takes these heavy, sludgy guitars and pushes them into a punk tempo. Not a novel song, but hard-hitting at least. However, I think the band goes straight from ruthless to toothless on the very next song, with all these staccato guitar riffs that really have no thrill to them whatsoever. It's just so tedious listening to the band hammer through these riffs. I think the same thing happens on the track Framed to the Wall on the second half of that song, which is kind of disappointing considering it starts off as one of the fastest and most explosive songs on the entire record. But there are songs on this record that I think are legitimately crushing, especially toward the back end of this LP, where I think more than ever on the rest of this album, Eyehategod is truly sounding like their old selves, especially with the second to last track here, which gets incredibly heavy and doomy, especially with this wall of blaring guitars on the tail end of the track. Just so massive. But some of my favorite and what I think the most memorable parts of this LP are when Eyehategod are kind of at their bluesiest. There's the song Quitter's Offensive, which to me sounds like Led Zeppelin on cocaine and meth for a decade, adding to its rap sheet every year that goes by. And in the process, you get one of those really disgusting mugshot progressions where, okay, physical graffiti is the first one, and this is the last one. There's also the song Nobody Told Me, which has these beautiful harmonized guitars in the middle of the track, which is a really nice change of pace from the relentless sludge throughout the rest of the album. And there's the track Worthless Rescue 2, where Eyehategod actually pulls out, I think, some of the sweetest guitar leads on the entire album. Eyehategod's incorporation of leads and melodies like this, it's good, but I do have my slight reservations about it because I think they tend to approach them with so much aggression that they suck the soul out of them a little bit. Like they really took these melodies and they just seared them on a hot coal grill for 24 hours till they were just like burnt to a crisp. I think it's really admirable that Eyehategod was able to come back with a sound that is so true to their past several records. I mean, it's very clear that Eyehategod cares about their sound. But maybe at this point in their return, the joints are not completely fluid and moving yet. Because despite the volume of this LP, there are just so many spots where I think the animalistic nature of the band doesn't really translate into the listening experience. Because there are quite a few riffs on this record that either grow stale over time as they are repeated through these tracks, or just aren't even interesting to begin with. I'm feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this LP. Transition, if you've given this record a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Eyehategod, forever.